Google Analytics 4. We have so many questions, but until now, getting straight answers have been hard to come by. Do you have any questions about GA4 that you need to have answered? Well, perhaps I'm going to answer them in this video. Listen up as I answer 8 questions about GA4 as submitted by our data-driven community members. Absolutely not. There is no problem whatsoever in doing what we call parallel tracking or dual tagging. Basically, you can tag your site through Google Tag Manager to have data sent to the Universal Analytics stream as well as to the GA4 stream, and things will be no problem whatsoever. They'll be running in parallel. Google will collect data into both setups for you, and you can use them both as a way to make the proper transition, and you can do a comparison now between what the two platforms can do for you. So I highly recommend dual tagging starting as soon as possible, as soon as you watch this video. Now there are some hidden advantages to doing it sooner, and that is the sooner you do it, the longer you're going to have data in your GA4 account, so that when ultimately you don't collect data anymore in your Universal Analytics account on July 1, 2023, that you at least have some data to fall back on and make decisions from in your GA4 account. Okay, so here we go. We have a glossary of terms in our GA4 migration checklist, which is a resource that is available for free to you if you go to ddu.ai/GA4. You can download this resource and take a look at it. And inside of it, we have some definitions of a glossary of terms. And then actually, if you just go through the whole 30+ page document, what you'll find in there is that there's tons of insights and tons of information about how to migrate to GA4. And not only that, but while we're talking about migrations, it gets you familiar with the terms that are in the lingo of what is in GA4. So if you go in there and you follow that resource, you will get familiar both with our glossary of terms, but then also you'll see what's unique about GA4 based on the steps we outline in the checklist. So I highly recommend that you download that and check it out. Now, I don't speak for Google, but what I will tell you is that they probably made a decision to get rid of views because either people are misusing them or they're polluting the reports, or there's just too much data that's being collected. If you have one property and you have 10 views under it that you're not using, you're only using one, then I would say that they're probably not finding a lot of value in storing that for you, and they want to get that data off the books. And so if you were to ask me, I think this is a conscious choice by Google to eliminate the amount of data we collect and to reduce the overhead of Google Analytics. And yeah, we might be a little bit of a victim of that by not having views like we're used to, but you'll see in the next question, there are some alternatives that I think are better than what views did in Universal Analytics that are available in GA4. Okay, the coolest thing about GA4 that nobody really talks about is that you can customize the reports interface and make it so that only certain data and metrics come across. Now, this is not possible at all really in Universal Analytics. All the reports had all the different metrics, and it was really a pain because you wanted to limit information to the people who was receiving it based on what their needs are. And so you can do this. You can customize your reports, you can remove certain reports from the interface, and you can create different reporting views for people that you can use in order to control what information they see and give them only access to the data that matters to them. So it's actually a huge improvement to be getting rid of views, which had to use a lot of unreliable filters in order to sort of hack this together. Now it's natively in the interface, and it's easy that anybody can do it. And so I think the use for views is widely eliminated by having this functionality out there. We know how things drag on with Google. How do they make sure that everybody's on the same page when the deadline to switch over to GA4 is coming so quickly? I do think that the date is set in stone. The more that I talk to people both in and around Google, the more I realize that this date is set in stone and it's going to be what it is. And so I don't think you're going to have an extension or a grace period. I think they're going to cut it off exactly when they say they're going to. Okay, so if you want to look at historical performance and you want to look at it in UA, the collected data is just going to be inaccessible. So first of all, the data is going to stop being collected. That's going to happen in UA on July 1, 2023. And then after that, eventually it's not going to be accessible. Most likely, it's going to be removed from when you log into Google Analytics. You won't even see the old Universal Analytics stuff. It'll just be gone from the interface. and you won't be able to look at historical anything. You're just going to see only GA4 properties, and that is likely to happen somewhere after 6 months from that July 1st, 2023 deadline, but it could be within that first day. So it could be as early as January 1, 2024 that you no longer have access to your Universal Analytics reports. And what will end up happening then is that if you didn't plan ahead and move your Universal Analytics reports to some kind of data store like BigQuery, using some kind of connector or even a Google tool if they were to release one, then you wouldn't have that data and it would be pretty bad. How will we migrate analytics when there are multiple stakeholders, users, inside and outside of a company, agencies, consultancies, and developers? Well, somebody's got to take control of it. Usually it's the company themselves that should be leading this, but a lot of times it ends up being the agencies and contractors because they're the ones who benefit most from having this data. So if you're a part of the agency world or a consultant or a freelancer, I would pitch your client on doing some kind of migration sooner than later. If they have development teams, I would work with them to get that going. If you have tag manager in place, I'd push out dual tagging. I would do whatever I can in order to get the data out there in a both cost-effective yet understanding the risks and benefits of what's happening here. If they've spent any money on reporting and analytics and consultants in the past, if they don't fix this, they don't spend a little bit of money making this migration happen, then what's going to end up happening is if they spend no time and effort on this, is they're going to have to spend a lot of money trying to get it back later on, and they're going to have a lot of gaps in their data. And so if you value analytics data whatsoever as a company or as an agency, then you should say, okay, we need to do this now, and we need to spend some money in here in order to make sure that this thing is going to be working effectively for us well into the future. And so you sort of got to spend money if you value the data that's in analytics. And if you don't value that data, then just give it up. You don't really need it, right? If you don't value it, then don't waste your time. However, I think that everybody should be valuing their analytics data. Otherwise, I wouldn't be out here on YouTube. I wouldn't be out here having my channel and my platform. Of course, I value data, and I think you should too. Okay, so if you set up conversions, there's a very, very good chance that those conversions will work even better in the future. So as long as you're flagging an event as a conversion, Google is going to keep on tabulating that, and eventually that's going to populate into more and more reports. You're going to get things like your conversion rate. I can only estimate or guess that's going to happen. You're going to get some of the reports you're more familiar with from the past. You're going to get things like value from conversions. You're going to be able to track what's happening over time. So you're going to have more outcome tracking if you put it in place. Now, if you don't put it in place now, then you won't have that data whenever they implement those things into the interface. And so if you're expecting that Google's going to have parity, meaning equality between Universal Analytics and GA4, then you need to set up your conversions in GA4 in order to experience that parity. I think this is clearly covered here on our YouTube channel and in general, and that is that GA4 is much more privacy-centric and has much more privacy controls than Universal Analytics ever did and will have, and so it's out of the box much more privacy-friendly. Of course, privacy regulations are a moving target. Things change all the time, things get implemented, new knowledge comes to light, and so it is compliant as of the time that I record this as much as we know, and Google's put in painstaking detail to make that happen, but there may be court rulings or new legislation comes out that will change that. And so it's one of those things that's always developing, and it's a good idea to sort of pay attention to it, both the developments that Google recommends and puts out there, the features they have in place, as well as what your company's policy is and what you need to do from a privacy regulation standpoint too, and wherever you live or you service customers, make sure that you're compliant there. So it's not all on Google, but they're doing their best to make it compliant, and then it's up to you to make sure that you take what Google gives you and make it compliant for your business and your jurisdiction. Okay, so that's it. Thanks everybody who has submitted questions to our mailbag. And if you want to get started with migrating to Google Analytics 4, I have the ultimate resource for you. Our GA4 migration checklist is over 30 pages of instructions to make sure you smoothly transition every aspect of your GA data to the new system the right way. And you can get this handy guide at ddu.ai/GA4.